What's up, guys? Welcome back. Today we've got a different kind of video for the channel than we would normally have, but one I think you could probably expect to see a little more of. I really like the Dragon Ball Super card game, now called Dragon Ball Super Masters, although I don't particularly like where it's kind of ended up. It's changed a little bit since its inception as the years have gone on. It's been out, almost 9 years now. It makes sense that it's changed. But as it has done so, it's stopped being so much of the game that I enjoyed, and it's kind of changed into something I enjoy a little less now. That said, there was a period of time where Dragon Ball Super was my favorite card game ever. And I still really enjoy playing the game. Even like modern decks or whatever I still enjoy, but I enjoy specifically some certain kind of older eras of the game that was when I was like much more involved in the game, when we were still having locals at my shop, we were still traveling as a team to regionals and things like that. So I thought, what if we just sort of made this like an actual format? So I did some digging and kind of thought about like the best kind of place to cut it off, and I ended up settling on what I called the Go format. So this is the Dragon Ball Super card game Go format, which the Go comes from, this set runs from, it's basically everything before set 10. So it doesn't have any of the unisons, it doesn't have any of the Z-Deck stuff, none of that kind of thing. It is just, strictly battle cards, leaders, extra cards. And the Go comes from set 1, Galactic, the G in Galactic Battle, through set 9, Universal Onslaught, the O in Onslaught. So Galactic Battle through Universal Onslaught. And technically that's a little bit wrong because we do allow Draft Box 5, which came out right after set 9. So it's everything before the inception of set 10. So you don't get the Vegex starters or any of that, and you also don't get the Go Tanks or Goku little expansion packs that introduced unisons. Those are cut out too. So it takes us up to like right about March of 2020. And I think that this is a really cool era for the game, and also existed in a time where all of us remember COVID at its peak. Everything got shut down, and so the sort of set 9 and Draft Box 5 meta kind of didn't really get to exist. There were only a couple of events. There was a Chicago regional, there was Daylon Max Tournament of Power, but really, we didn't get to do a lot. So this is just kind of a fun way to go back and get to explore that format a little more. This is an era of really, really powerful Dragon Ball Super. The Surge leaders are at full strength. The Gogeta 7 is still a card. Anyone who has like historical memories of kind of older Super, most of the things that you can think of being good are still present and still at full power. So it's just a strong, fast, powerful era of the game. There was a whole lot of counterplay. There was a lot of arrival, a lot of like deep interactive stuff on off turns. Some of the best decks, most of the best decks in the game, like play most of their turns off turn. There was a lot less floodgates. We had Righteous Aid Topo, which was the big one, of course, but if you ran red, you got to have that. Otherwise, you didn't really get a floodgate like that. He was kind of the inception of what the game has since flooded us with. But I said, let's make this a format. So it is not like custom or anything. It's basically the rules as they were in sets 1 through 9, just up to that cutoff in March of 2020. The only slight adjustment is that Reboot Gohan is banned. He was banned at the very beginning of set 10. I talked with Fashbender and some stuff like that about just kind of like how the balance of this should feel, and we just sort of agreed that like that Gohan sucks, man. It sucks to play against that card. So we did make one historical change, but otherwise everything is as it was. We have the same CRD from that time. We have the same ban list, etc. So this has just been existing casually as a thing that I've played with a couple friends for a while. I have announced it online as a thing I've sort of developed or whatever, but never really done anything with it. Nino Machado has done some cool stuff with making videos of his own about Go format. There have been people who have started posting deck lists. There have been people playing it on Untap just casually. So that's been really cool to see. And I decided finally, like, let's get started and try to make this a thing that happens. So we went ahead and we did a tournament. So we had the first Go format tournament. We have a Discord server where this is all played, and we organized it and got it put together. So I had it start June 15th. We did kind of like a league style thing where you get a game every Sunday and you have until the following Sunday to play your game. And then we cut to a top cut and played it out. I award a mythic booster box to first place, and then second place got an SCR of their choice. The mythic booster box, when it came out, was both good and bad for the game. It dropped the cost a lot on some really important, like, winnable cards, which some people disliked because it hurt the return on investment for competing at high levels. But other people really liked it because it opened the doors for some people to get cards they had not been able to get previously. But it's like a dream come true box for this format. It has some stuff from set 10 and on that is not legal, so there are some cards you'll open that you just aren't legal for what you're doing, but even those are fine to hit. But there's so many reprints of really, really powerful stuff from this format of the game, like Saiyan Instinct's Goku, the yellow draw ape Draku. On the box you can see there the red Kaioken Goku that kind of board wipes. That was a really good card. The Tyranny, or what is his name? The Arrival Cooler. Just great. Cell Zeno got reprinted in this set. The SS4 Vegeta Secret Rare got reprinted. The Surge Leaders got reprinted. It was just good. Like, there's a lot of really cool value in this set for playing this particular era of the game. So it was a fun little prize. But I want to get into how things went with this first tournament. We had 16 players register. 14 of them actually made it through, so we'll say it was a 14-person tournament. We played over Untap, and we did best of 1 for this first thing. I didn't want to do best of 3 with sideboards for a format where people don't know what the format is. I wanted it to be the most accessible that it could be. Going forward, we'll probably pivot more into the best of 3 with sideboards, and even kind of going into a webcam direction. The cards for this era of the game are pretty cheap, and it's fun to have a reason to buy them. So I would like to play over webcam and get to use the cards that I have. But we played on Untap for this first one. That worked great. It's just a great way to get people into playing the game and trying the format out. We had a really impressive kind of meta breakdown for this first event. I've made this little slide here, decks by leader. So in the 14 decks that were played, there were 2 red-green Surge Brolys, 2 Janemba Mills, both blue-yellow. We had a blue-green Surge Piccolo. Interesting, we had a blue-red Android 18 Mill. That's a fairly uncommon deck. It kind of existed as a little bit of a meme, but not one you see particularly often. We had a black Boo. Everyone familiar with this era of the game knows that Boo is very good. I'm a little surprised personally that there was only one of those. There was one Golden Frieza deck. That was myself on that. It's also a little bit of a weird deck, but we had also one green Cell all the way back from set 2. This is a friend of mine I know personally, and he has been on this leader forever. Big fan. So no surprise there. We had a blue-green Evil Android 21. We had a black Hachiak deck, a blue-red Cooler Mill. Nino was on blue-red Vegeta, like an Invoker deck, but with the red Vegeta as opposed to the 17 or Invoker Goku. And then we had one Demigod deck. So I was pretty impressed, to be honest, by the spread of decks in this event. There was no Surge Goku, which I expected to see. One of the things that is kind of enticing about this era of the game is that the Surge decks are like at full power. So like Surge Piccolo is not errated, he is still full strength. So I was a little surprised to only see one Surge Piccolo deck get played. I also, with Surge Goku being the one that kind of settled as the best of the three or whatever most of the time, I was surprised to not see any of those. That deck is a lot of fun to play, and also was historically prohibitively expensive. Anyone who played back then will remember that deck being like $1,000+ to build. Now it's like 110 if you wanted to buy everything, you know. So that's just awesome. Demigras was really cool to see. I've been a huge Demigras stan forever, so it was fun to see someone represent him. That kind of Demigras Storm deck that exists, as supported by the various draft boxes and things, is a really interesting deck. Hatchiyak has always been classic. It was cool to see that one played. Also played in the kind of traditional way that it used to be, where you had more of the Adventure Begins Goku with the Dragon Balls for draw power. There was another version of Hatchiyak that was kind of popular at this time too, where people played with the Power Rangers, the Catopesla guys. This was not one of those versions. It was just more like black good stuff with the Goku package for draw. Cooler Mill makes sense. That was a popular deck. Overall, I think like there isn't anything here that was a huge surprise to me. If I didn't know the guy playing Cell, I would think that one was a little bit of a surprise. No offense, that is just not historically powerful by the era of Set 9, but it's his baby, so like it makes perfect sense that it's here. Speaking of baby, I'm a little surprised there isn't a baby deck here too. As we do more of these events, I'm sure that, you know, more of these kind of decks are going to come out of the woodwork more to be represented. I also am really curious to see if anything comes up that was just like unheard of at the time. I know that most people, most decks that can exist in this game already did, because the people who were deep in the tank already were. This was the era when like 3XG was still around doing their thing, Crossworlds was still doing their thing, Eggman, Android, like everyone was like at the peak of when content was happening. So if there was a deck to be made, it got made. So there isn't going to be a lot of like super surprising stuff, but the Set 9 and 9.5 meta aren't as explored as some of the other ones. So I'm curious to see if anything sort of materializes from this. Anyway, I want to go over, after we got through our rounds of Swiss, we cut to a top cut. I'm going to go over the top 4 decks just to kind of show you what decks like looked like from the time and what looked like that got played here. So we get into our deck that took first place, was Broly, Surge Brutality, the red-green Surge Broly deck. This list particularly, I think, is really cool. There's some things here that are a little unique to some of the Surge Broly decks. You didn't always see the assimilated ability. That wasn't always kind of a part of these decks. Same with the Master and Pupil, though I do like the addition of that here. That's a cool little tech. The collectors, this is another thing too, man, like the collectors binders that came out, some of those were sort of whatever by the time they happened, but here they're like peak. Like you get the super cool multicolor alt art, super combos in the collector's rare, which is great. You can get the promo baby, you can get this red Goku that I was talking about earlier, you can get cool leader, like those were really cool products too. That's one of the things that I think is really, really fun about this like format in particular, is that you get to kind of embrace some of the really cool releases of things. And even because of the way Bandai like releases kind of old support and cards and stuff, you sometimes get like sprinkled in cool new stuff. So one of the newest event pack 17 or whatever I think it is, that's out sort of like right now, has a revived Ravager Vegeta in it, and it also has the 3-cost Demigod that you use to stop 30k. That's like all the way from back in set 3 or something like that, but now there's a cool new like alt-art promo of it. We just got a Broly Crown of Retribution reprint. Technically it is errated on that version because the game has needed it, at this era of the game, it wouldn't have that errata, but at least the new art is really interesting. It's just really cool that, like, there are judge stamped versions of all of the Checkland cards, like this Broly up here. So those are all really fun to get. These God and Angel cards from DraftBox 5, those still a little bit expensive, are not too bad. They're just kind of more expensive than most things in the set. But it's just really fun to get to, like, bling out some of these old school decks. Even this leader here, the Surge of Brutality Broly leader, has an alt art. So it's I don't know. It's a fun era to get to maximize how cool your decks look too. But overall, things here make a lot of sense. The Chi-Chi Motherly Majesty, I've always adored this card. Like, it's super strong. Getting to do the Gogeta arrival stuff is great. Topo, like I mentioned before, with being kind of the first of the sort of modern style of floodgates where your opponent has to do something to keep attacking. This card, when it came out, was wildly staple, and for good reason. It cost 20k body that also countered an attack and then sort of prevented your opponent from making more attacks. Vegeta the Cruel was super relevant in this format. It was easy to get this as a turn 2 counterplay. Overall, I think, like, this deck makes a lot of sense. I think it's cool to see a couple of the little bits of uniqueness that they've got going on. The Fuzomasu, the Piccolo Assimilate ability, the Son Gohan Master and Pupil. All of those are a little bit unique to this type of deck, but it's cool that hearing them clearly worked great for him. So I'm excited to see more of this kind of deck existing. I love the sort of variations of the Surge leaders. That's one of the things I always thought was so cool about them, is that every version of a Surge deck was like a little bit different, and that was cool. That's one thing also about this format that's really neat, is that their decks aren't like archetypal like they are in Super now. A lot less cards say, if your leader is red and a Broly and it's a Tuesday. Like, a lot less cards say that kind of thing. So this era was a lot more of kind of a good stuff pile deck era. Some people don't like that. Some people like when a deck has more of like an inherent core. I, for one, really like let's just play the good cards, let's find our good ratios, and it was cool for deck building. Players who were more interested in constructing a cool deck really thrived in this era of the game. The decks nowadays, while still strong, are strong for different reasons, because they now it's based on like how cohesive and consistent is your strategy, how well does your like chain do its thing into your Z deck to kind of keep the ball rolling, so that like your turn 1, 2, 3, 4 happens on curve, and then win happens typically. This era was a lot more, it was just different, because you could kind of put mostly whatever you wanted in your deck as long as it met your colors, and it just made for really interesting deck building and decisions and things like that. So second place here is that 18 mil deck that I mentioned. This is a really cool top cut, especially for making it all the way to second place. The sort of gimmick of this deck is that 18 uses the Android 21's scheme to play clone tokens on your opponent's side of the field to return, and then 18 can kind of spend them to do stuff, and you have a couple of they're like 10k bodies, and they sit there. You get to awaken pretty quick, so it's not often that those 10ks get to matter to attack you back, but you can spend them to do things, and then the first card that is played each turn by a player cannot attack. So you get a little bit of control over how to how your opponent has to play, because they have to like waste a play first and then play whatever card they wanted to. So this deck has a lot of things that can take advantage of that. You get 3 copies of this Frieza's Death Embrace, which is a 1-drop, draws a card when you play it, so it just cantrips itself, and then is a mana sink to kill cards. You've got the Goku Black here, which does nothing else with the rest of the deck. He's just you get 3 copies of a card you can play for literally free. So he was great. You get to your kind of kill turn, you windmill slam a Goku Black. Your first card has now been played. Goku Black can't attack. Oh darn, he's a 10k that didn't really do anything. But now I can play my actual card that costs energy and go for the win. Speaking of going for the win, the big thing here is the full power Frieza. A little tough to read the text through the SPR version here, but it is full power. It's like full power max. I don't even remember the extended name of this card. I apologize. But its thing is when it attacks, all your opponent's cards get negative power. So you, and then they mill for every card that gets their power reduced. So you play this card, you swing, you give a bunch of battle cards minus, I think it's 10,000 power, and then they mill a card for every card, 2 cards, sorry, for every card that you did that to. Now that pairs into this Android 21 scheme concept where you're giving them 2 cards a turn. They're these little 10Ks that they can't combo and they don't really do anything. You're going to leave them alone mostly. And you just sort of spend multiple turns just essentially not dying. You play Topo to keep negating. You play Ultra Instinct Goku the Unstoppable, which we only just kind of call Cryptic Command Goku because he works sort of like Cryptic Command in Magic. But incredible card, used to be like $100 and is now like $3 or something, so super cool. But just a straight 4-cost card. You get to counterplay or counterattack one of your opponent's cards, and just really, really strong. You get the Arrival Cooler for some pressure, some mill to help you with pushing your mill strategy along, but also a big double striker. Frieza, the secret rare here, if you need to have like an alternate win con, you have this option available to you. It's got, it's a big body. It prevents your opponent from being able to combo. Just big body, big finisher if this Frieza full power is not your win. But most of the time what happens is you just sort of stay alive, tapping cards, negating cards, blanking cards, floodgating cards, dimension magicking through stuff, and then you can either play Rebirth of Justice for 4 to play Frieza a turn early, or you can counter with Frieza on 3 energy, and then play Frieza a turn early on turn 4 if you haven't lined up. So you've got 4 options to play him earlier than you need to, but you play him, swing him, and then all your opponent's cards get negatived. And a lot of times what ends up happening is they've got like 9 tokens and some battle cards of their own or something, and then they mill for like 24. I've seen it happen a lot. It happened to me. I've played this deck in various kind of varieties, and it's pretty good at doing that. This, like I said, was always a little bit of kind of a meme, but especially in a best of 1 format, a deck like this really prospered. There's no, side decking or whatever for game 2 to deal with a deck like this. It just got to set the Frieza down and do the thing, and then you probably died. In best of 3, you would be doing some stuff a little bit differently, where you might be trying to handle the tokens a little more on your own, or maybe playing less of your own battle cards and focusing on like large things. You might save counterplays and stuff for this Frieza. So there's just different things that you would do if you were, kind of knew it was coming. But in a best of 1 setting, this is like a really cool deck for kind of getting you with that gotcha moment. And nothing is funnier in this game than being able to just turn a card sideways and then say, mill 30. It's nuts. By the time you can do that, with as often as this card game draws, a lot of times that's just game. And as Looney Quick Cobra 2 can tell you, that is what happened every round he played his deck. He got to do the thing, got to mill for a bunch, and just worked. So this is a really cool list. Just really interesting. In 3rd place, we had Surge Piccolo. This was played by Nick P. And this is very much your standard Surge Piccolo deck. Like, there isn't anything here that is particularly shocking or anything like that. The one thing that's a little shocking is that he does not have the secret rare SS4 Vegeta in here. He had it in, I know, in the sort of playtesting phase of this, of putting this deck back together, but just essentially decided that he didn't need that big of a mana dump in a turn. He just instead would kind of outvalue with incremental things until Bad Omen was either enough to do it, or just you discard enough cards out of their hand to kind of hit them chunk by chunk. There is a lot of hand destruction in this deck. It is very easy to get going, and you get to play a lot off of your turn. You get to draw way more cards than the average deck because you're drawing 2 cards a turn at the start of your turn every turn. Your backside effect lets you ramp or rip cards out of your opponent's hand that are, potentially problematic. So there's just a lot of things that this deck really does to stay on top of the game, and it's just very rare that you're out of it. You have a lot of options at kind of all times to answer stuff. You've got a ton of negates, you've got a ton of defense, and then even when it's not just strictly defense, you can get into the combo step and set up a rivaling the Son Goku and Son Gohan, which will send a battle card from play into their energy, and also bottom deck things, rip cards out of their hand. The Earth Destroying Kamehameha does, Special Beam Cannon does the same thing. The 18 Bionic Blitz bottom decks cards when you combo with it. So there's a ton of disruption you can play defensively too. Then when it gets back to your turn, you can overwhelm your Dark Temptation Toas to get cards out of their hand. Vegeta the Cruel will counterplay stuff that they're going to do on their turn. You just have a lot of answers. The one of Hidden Potential, sometimes this card is a little bit clunky, so I can see just running the 1 copy of it, but having it handy is nice. A 2-drop counterplay feels very good, but it is a hard 2-cost counterplay at blue and green, so you've got to make sure your turns line up the right way to be able to use that, and you can't reduce the cost or anything like that like you can with many of these other cards. So it just I can see just running the 1 copy of that. Janemba is a neat add too, as just one valuable body if you don't have cards in play, which often you won't, because a lot of what you're doing is just playing control-y defense. But then you can windmill the Janemba down. It's a 20k critical, which is good because it doesn't put the cards back in their hand, and you get to kind of play offense but without hurting your sort of defensive rip strategy. So that's a cool thing too. You've got to be a little careful because in this format, like I mentioned earlier, the combo step is a very, very dangerous element of the game, and you gotta know that that's when most of the things happen. You get a ton of arrivals and things like that. That's when decks really turn their wheels. So staying out of the combo step when not necessary, or when it's not necessary to get into the combo step, it's sometimes better not to. But at least with Janemba, a 20k critical is a semi-valid reason to do so. The Fuse Zamasu is a nice overlay over the Goku after it's done its thing. You can put Zamasu in and then just start ripping a card out of their hand every turn. Overall, there isn't anything interesting to talk about with unique adds to this deck. This is just classic good stuff Surge Piccolo, but it is fully powered and still a blast to play. And then finally, in 4th place, we had the Black Boo deck. This was played by Phil. You might know him around the internet as Phil Plays. He has made Masters content for years, as well as Fusion World, One Piece, etc. Still making content to this day, so it was cool to have him present for this. He brought out the kind of classic Black Boo. This is another deck where there isn't anything here that's particularly surprising. He does have the 2 copies of the promo Majin Buu Diabolic Punisher. There are a couple. Historically, not everyone played this card, and it was more that you went with Supreme Evil. But this is nice to have an option. I think there are plenty of times where the effect on this one is just as good. So I think the split is nice. The Hatchiyak is a cool body that you can play out of your discard pile. Turles getting to exist and not be banned is pretty exciting. Bibbidi is not errated either, so he doesn't have a cap on how much power he can add. But this deck just goes, it spends its first couple turns kind of setting up the discard pile and getting ready, And then turn 3, it goes from the 2-drop boo into the 4-drop boo, into the 5-drop, into the 5-drop, into the 6-drop, and just all that in a turn. And then it just kind of repeats that process as many times as it needs to win. In a best of one format especially, this deck is a great choice. There are a lot of decks that will just sit down across from this. They'll start their first turn and play their rested multicolor energy, because in an era where you were playing multicolored decks, that's what a lot of people did. So that is a very, very common turn 1 in this era of the game, and this deck will punish you for that. So you just need to be prepared to not get steamrolled with this deck. But on the same token, a lot of decks can set up their turn to counterplay, whether it's Vegeta the Cruel or the Gohan or the Champa, whatever. Vegeta in this case being the best one against this deck because it kills the 2-drop boo when it comes into play, messing up their entire boo chain for the turn, and they've got to scramble to find another way to pull that off. But if you can't answer the boo, the chain is basically just going to happen and you got to deal with it. So congrats to Phil for taking 4th with this deck. The top 4 are, there's not a lot of surprise. Like, Surge Broly was historically great. Surge Piccolo, obviously contender for one of the 2 or 3 best decks like of the era. Black Boo was way up there too. The 18 mil one is a little bit of a surprise, but very welcome. It's fun to see fun decks be able to compete and make top cut, especially against an era of the game that was so powerful. And then one last thing I want to cover. I myself bubbled just barely into 5th. I had the same record as some of the top cut guys, but just bubbled. So the deck that I played was the Golden Frieza deck. This one is, I call it Golden Frieza Victory Strike. It's a pretty unique deck and was really just built to answer like this era of the game. I played this at the Chicago Regional in February of 2020, and then came home, promptly got super sick, and discovered, we didn't know COVID was a thing yet, but that's certainly what happened. But the idea of this deck was that you spend the first few turns of the game, your first 2, 3, just like kind of playing the Frieza like weenies and getting value and drawing cards, and you get like a giant hand. And then you can Successor of Hope or just naturally draw into Path to Greatness on turn 3. This card has barrier. When you play it, you draw a card and get to tap one of your opponent's cards. And then on the following turn, you pay 4 to swap this Goku back into your hand to play this Goku, Height of Mastery Son Goku, out of your hand. It has triple strike and dual attack, so it can hit for 6 damage. And when you play it, your opponent taps 4 of their cards. So a lot of times you can use this to just like tap out 4 of their energy, or stuff like that, or some blockers, or whatever. There's a lot of really, really strong things that could do. But for most decks, that's kind of where it like stops. And then if you wanted to do the Awakened Power Victory Strike thing, you had to wait. But with Frieza's power, you get to sacrifice a Frieza's Army guy, this whole sort of first chunk of the deck, and these Brolys as well. And if you do, you untap 2 energy and then draw a card while you're awakened. So on turn 4, you play Height of Mastery for 4, sack a Frieza, untap 2, draw a card, and then immediately get to play the Goku out. You have 1 energy up 2 that you can, do if you want to do something spicy with it, like maybe you need to cold bloodlust something that might come in afterward. Whatever, there are different options you can do there. But really, it's nice to be able to combo an extra Goku out of your hand, or a Fu if they happen to be stuck there. But with the way that this deck draws cards, it's often common that you've got like 14, 15 cards in hand. So you swing Goku, Victory Strike for 45k, you dump your entire hand, you go to like 100, and then be like, can you beat it? And most of the time the answer is no, and then you just win. The deck is also definitely strongest in like a best of 1 setting, and when your opponent doesn't know what you're doing. If they can answer your Path to Greatness, it just kind of falls on its face, and there are plenty of ways to do that. So it's definitely not like great, but I built it because it kept the... I didn't enter the combat step. So on turns 1 and 2 and 3, I don't attack at all. So there's not a single time where I enter combat against where I go into the battle phase with Surge Piccolo deck to start ripping cards out of my hand. I don't go into it with Surge Goku to start playing out the big apes or stuff like that. I don't go into it with Surge Broly to start playing out problematic things there. I don't go into it against red-blue decks that are going to play the coolers. I don't do any of that. I just sit there, draw my own cards. I prevent you from awakening. Well, not always awaken, because the Surge decks will do it on their own, but this deck, will starve decks that are trying to do it on their own, and then you just sort of let them whittle the cards down in their own hand or enter the battle step against you, which you've got ways out of with Nimbus, Time Magic, etc. And then you also don't care about taking the early damage, because that's just more cards in your hand to combo on turn 4 with Goku. So turns 1 through 3, you just do basically nothing. You just sort of cycle through drawing cards. Turn 4, you Windmill Slam the Height of Mastery and the Victory Strike, and turn it sideways and set your hand on the table, which means you get to do all of that before like a Surge Piccolo deck can discard cards from your hand. So you get good value there, and then hopefully it works. But that's it. That's all the deck does. It did well enough in the regional at the time. I got 37th with it. There was like 389 or something people in that event. I got 37th. We went to time in the middle of my swing with Victory Strike. Had I been able to finish, the split would have been 15th, so I would have made top 16. Would have been cool. But horseshoes and hand grenades is the only thing where almost matters. So 37th is what I got. But I've always loved this deck. I was really proud of it when I put it together, and I wanted to kind of revive it here for this event. And I'm glad that it got as close to top cut again as it did. It's always a bridesmaid, never a bride, I guess. Maybe we'll see it make it one time in the future. But that's it for now. I'm really impressed with how this event went. The format was very fun to play. The people that were a part of the event seemed to really enjoy it. We have people already asking when the next one's going to be, so I'm excited to see that pop off. If you are interested in partaking in the Go format alongside us, feel free to join the Discord. It is linked below, and we'll have updates for the next event going there. If not, just thanks for spending some time watching a video and hanging out with me here. I will keep putting out content for this, I think. It's still sort of fits the dead game vibe of what this channel typically is, because this era of the game is very much a bygone. But I really enjoy playing it, and I'm excited to get some tournaments going and bring some more light and publicity to the Go format. Thanks again for hanging out. I know this is a 40-minute video. If you made it this far, comment below that you did. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more Go format content. Thank you.